And it appears that we have a live stream. Praise the Father. Copy. Go over here. Share for the patrons. Maybe. By the way, if you hear all types of people in the background, that's because there's all types of people here whom I love. Alright, let's go ahead. Justin, Texas Surplus, James Cipriano, good deal. Let's go to display capture, alt tab. There we go. Alright, we're going to do the threat matrix this evening. It's been a while. Y'all have asked for it. And there's some interesting things happening in the world. I am paying attention to these things specifically because they give me intel, actionable intel, to the best of my ability to operate with. Not because I want to get up in a tizzy, not because I'm threatened or concerned, just because I want to be able to operate in this crazy, chaotic world that we exist in. I did a poll on Patreon, or not really a poll, but a short video yesterday on Patreon. By the way, thank you to all of our patrons for being the economic engine of the Bear Nation. We frankly would not do this show without you. I did a short video on Patreon yesterday asking, do you even care anymore? And that was not meant to be an affront towards the patrons. It's to take the temperature of the people who are the most involved in the Bear Nation to find out, where are you with everything that's going on in the world? And there is a spectrum, but most people, and this is not a value judgment on anybody, but most people are squarely on the end of the spectrum of, I'm just, to the extent that I'm paying attention, I'm just paying attention not because I care very much about what's happening in the world anymore, but because I want to be as informed as I can be to have the best actionable intel that I can have to be able to protect myself and the people that I love. So, Jay Morris, Shalom, Linda Adams, Jamie, so forth and so on. Bless y'all in the chat. So, the threat matrix this evening. Food shortage. If you're new here, we're tracking 7 things: food shortage, civil unrest, economic crisis, tyranny, war, disinformation, and Rome burning. Our categories for culprits in these areas are we the people, citizenry, the government, China and or the Ruskies, the resistance, which is a new column, and this doesn't necessarily mean a righteous resistance, as we're going to see here later in the brief, the system, and then other factors outside of those 5 columns. So we'll get started here. From threatpost.com, by the way, you have the links to all of this in the description, both on YouTube and on Patreon. Crystal Valley Farm Co-op hit with ransomware. It's the second agricultural business to be seized this week and portends a bitter harvest with yet another nasty jab at critical infrastructure. Interesting wording there. Crystal Valley, a Minnesota-based farm supply and grain marketing cooperative, has become the second U.S. agriculture business to be hit with a ransomware attack this week. The company released a statement about the attack on its website Tuesday afternoon, but as of Wednesday afternoon, aka yesterday, the site had been knocked offline and was still down. Crystal Valley confirmed in a Facebook post that it had been alerted to the attack on Sunday afternoon, September the 19th, 4 days ago. Crystal Valley has been targeted in a ransomware attack, blah, blah, blah. Their payment systems are down until further notice. The issue with this, and you have the article, you can read it for yourself, is that they control logistics for a large portion of the country that produces wheat, that produces soybeans, that produces hogs, that produces chickens, and everything downstream from there. And so the issue, if you read the report, or you read the reporting here at ThreatPost, is less that there's a lack of food or that there's a lack of feed. It's more that the logistics for the just-in-time logistical system no longer exist, no longer can be executed on because of this ransomware attack. And it illustrates the fragility of this system that we have. And so it's not that there's not enough food per se. It's not that there's not enough feed for the food per se. It's that we don't have the ability to pull the levers and push the buttons to make the stuff go where it needs to in a timely manner. We saw this, beginning about a year ago. of the mass slaughtering of chickens and of hogs and of cattle because they couldn't get feed, the dumping of millions of gallons of milk because the just-in-time logistics didn't exist to get the milk from the milk producers to the bottlers and canners where it was put into packaging and then moved into stores. And so it's one of those things we say around here, if we starve to death, it's our fault because my meat comes from 50 yards away from me. But if yours doesn't, something to pay attention to. Next on the list, we have our favorite civil unrest resistance folks, Black Lives Matter. From Daily Wire, New York BLM leader promises national uprising over racist vaccine mandates. Naturally. The co-founder of a Black Lives Matter group in New York warned of an uprising similar to the George Floyd protests last year over vaccine requirements. Shanova Newsom, an organizer with Black Lives Matter of Greater New York, led a protest on Monday at Carmine's Italian restaurant, who I'm sure has phenomenal food. Carmine's Italian restaurant just sounds like the kind of place I'll get some penne, maybe a nice Alfredo, probably a double lasagna. I'm sure they have excellent garlic knots. They may even have brick-fired pizza. Carmine's Italian restaurant in New York City after a hostess denied entry to 3 black women last week because they would not provide proof of vaccination. The women, tourists from Texas, allegedly attacked the hostess and were arrested on charges of assault and criminal mischief. Quote, 72% of black people in this city from ages 18 to 44 are unvaccinated, end quote, Newsom said during the protest at Carmine's, according to the Washington Examiner. Beginning the quote again, so what is going to stop the Gestapo, I mean the NYPD, from rounding up black people, from snatching them off the train, off the bus? We're putting this city on notice that your mandate will not be another racist social distance practice. Black people are not going to stand by, or you will see another uprising. And that is not a threat, that is a promise, she continued. The vaccination passport is not a free passport to racism. Black Women's March co-founder Kimberly Bernard added, we are serving notice on the mayor, on the governor, on the restaurant industry that we will not allow you to use this pandemic, vaccination cards, and masks as another reason to be racist, to put us in prison, because there's enough of us in there, end quote. Now, I'm not even going to touch that there's enough of us in there portion of this statement. And here we find strange bedfellows when it comes to freedom. I'm in no way a supporter of Black Lives Matter. They're Marxist, they're anti-Christian. I, frankly, am not a fan at all of what they stand for. I'm a huge fan of individual liberties, and I don't think that the government should be able to mandate anything that has to do with my health. So, does that mean I support them? No, I don't. Because even a blind monkey finds a nut every now and then, right? Blind squirrel finds a nut. They figured it out, I guess, apparently, enough that they can stand up for themselves, ? It's not a race thing, it's a tyranny thing. So, civil unrest. Economic crisis. We've got 2 boxes checked here, both with China and the system from RT. So, and people will say, well, RT is biased. It's all biased, homie. At least RT is honest about their bias. They're pro-Russia. That's fine. I'm not pro-Russia, but I can, chew the meat, spit out the bones, as a gentleman whom I have a deep appreciation for is fond of saying. Soaring energy prices become major headache for China. This is from yesterday at RT. And here we go. Europe is being ravaged by an unprecedented energy crisis, and it may already be spreading. Asia, the world's biggest buyer of gas and coal, may be next, with China particularly vulnerable because of the size of its economy. Perhaps and mind you, they're going to interweave the Green New Deal narrative into this article, which is astounding in of itself. Just be ready for it. The world's biggest buyer of gas and coal may be next, with China particularly vulnerable because of the size of its economy. Perhaps somewhat surprisingly, the big problem for China is not natural gas, it's coal, which powers the majority of its power plants. Also, it powers the majority of the United States power plants, but dirty little secret, we don't talk about that. According to a new report in the news outlet, Chinese power plant operators are finding it hard to buy enough coal to keep their facilities running, which will raising the likelihood of an energy crunch when winter comes. Coal prices are surging, blah, blah, blah. Likewise, China, along with India, is about to become the victim of an underinvestment, too, in coal, the dirtiest fossil fuel, and the target of much energy transition work has fallen out of favor with investors so badly as they seek investment opportunities in renewable energy that does not work for primary generation that the coal price spike this year must have come as quite a shock. Quoting from the article, what we are seeing is a dilemma for investors, financiers, as well as companies, Shirley Zhang, principal analyst at Wood Mackenzie, told Nikkei Asia. Despite the effort of moving the whole region into a cleaner future, catchwords, buzzwords, you still need coal for the next 10 years. I got news. You need coal for the next 100 years if you don't improve your capacitor technology. And it goes on from here. What's worse is that there's not enough coal and gas for China. There will not be enough coal and gas for everyone else who needs to import it. Countries with local coal and gas production will rake in a fortune from energy exports. But the rest, having to pay through the nose for that energy will see the same effects on their economic growth, namely a potentially severe stumping. A lot has been said about the emission aspect of fossil fuels. The current crisis offers another angle. Fossil fuels tend to get expensive, sometimes prohibitively so, when demand significantly exceeds supply. This is, in fact, one of the strongest practical arguments in favor of renewables. Actually, that's what the article says. As somebody who worked in the renewable industry, I will tell you it's all bunk. The three largest owners of renewable energy in the United States are Dutch Oil, British Petroleum, and ExxonMobil. They are energy companies, not oil companies, and the life expectancy of a turbine is somewhere around 20 years. The carbon offset of a turbine is somewhere around 40 years. So before you even manufacture the turbine, before you even stand it up, run the collection system, build the substation, run the transmission lines, commission the first wind turbine, you're already in the hole twice. The whole thing is just stupid. They're not primary generation, but I don't feel like getting up on that soapbox and preaching for the next half an hour. They're not primary generation. They're not even particularly good when it comes to offsetting carbon emissions. Do you know how much concrete is used to pour the foundation for one turbine? I do, somewhere around 360 to 670 yards. Cement, the number one carbon polluter on the face of the earth. Where does cement come from? Most of it comes from China, who's burning coal to produce it so that you can put up your wind turbine. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Anyway, the point here is that this crunch for fossil fuels in China could have a global impact, so something to be aware of. Moving right along, also from RT, CDC panel recommends allowing third COVID-19 vaccine shots for seniors, vulnerable adults, setting the stage for U.S. boosters to begin. And we find this clearly under the column of tyranny over here on our threat matrix. I need a sip of this red Solo cup for reasons. My beard thanks me for that. And a little of this Chaffee Oat cigar. There we go. Life is grand again. All right, from RT, CDC panel recommends allowing third COVID-19 vaccine shots for seniors. As U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which nobody even trusts anymore ever if they ever did to begin with, comma, asterisk, caveat, advisory panel has endorsed COVID-19 vaccine booster shots for the elderly and other high-risk adults, paving the way for the Biden administration to roll out third jabs. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices on Thursday recommended giving third doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which is not a vaccine, it's emergency use only authorization, gene therapy, just so we're all on the same page here. And that's not me pontificating, that's what it says in the documentation that comes from Pfizer-BioNTech. How do I know I have it? It's on my desk. That's what it says. I've shown it to you on camera 50 times, maybe 50 times. The not vaccine to people 65 and older, as well as to individuals aged 50 to 64 whose medical conditions make them more likely to suffer serious illness or death from the virus. If the CDC accepts the recommendation later today, as expected, the administration will have cleared its final hurdle to begin offering the booster shots. And here we have an interesting story from RT. A dude at the FDA said we should blow dart the vaccine into people who refuse to take the vaccine. To which I would say, when I respond with force on force, it won't be a blow dart, sir. 147 grain jacketed hollow points plus P. The CDC endorsement comes one day after the Food and Drug Administration approved third doses of Pfizer-BioNTech shot for essentially the same groups of people: seniors, people with underlying health conditions, and individuals who work in high-risk environments, such as nursing homes, hospitals, and prisons, as well as schools and grocery shops. By the way, if you continue to push this stuff in schools, if you touch my children, I will touch you back, and you won't like it when I touch you back. Both agencies stopped short of approving booster shots for all adults, as the administration had sought. More than a month ago, President Joe Biden announced plans to begin offering booster shots to all Americans ages 16 and older, saying they would begin on September the 20th. That move angered some public health officials and reportedly contributed to the resignation of 2 FDA vaccine officials because the president pushed ahead with his booster shot plan without adequate regulatory review, as if that had ever stopped them. 2 more brief paragraphs here. The World Health Organization has urged rich nations to refrain from starting booster shot programs because many poor countries are far from having enough vaccine supplies to administer their initial round of the shots. And the last paragraph, one sentence that I have highlighted here. Chief White House Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci has said that all Americans will eventually need to get booster shots to be considered fully vaccinated against COVID-19 because of the waning efficacy of the jabs over time. To which I would say, Dr. Anthony Fauci, please feel free to kiss my hairy white ass. From theblaze.com, this is further complicating things under the heading of war. Biden administration opposes move to give honorable discharge to troops who refuse the COVID-19 vaccine, demands keeping dishonorable discharge on the table. And so this is in reference to members of our armed forces who will not take the vaccine for whatever reason. And to be clear, it does not matter what any single individual's reason is for not doing this, because we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And one could make the argument, and in fact the DoD does make the argument, as we'll see here in a minute, that you sign your life over to the government, the DoD, the Department of Defense, for a hot minute when you're under contract as a soldier, airman, marine, or sailor, or coasties, or I guess Space Force now. I don't even know what you, satellite people, lasers, storms, I don't know what you do, but whatever. Point here being that you no longer are an individual, you are government property. Maybe. But that doesn't mean that you have the, in my mind, that you shirk the ability to say no to something that you are significantly convicted to not do, right? So, we'll just get back to the article. From the Blaze, the Biden administration thinks U.S. service members who refuse to comply with the military's COVID-19 vaccine mandate should be subjected to the potential of a dishonorable discharge. In a statement issued Tuesday, the White House forcefully rejected a provision in the National Defense Authorization Act prohibiting the Pentagon from dishonorably discharging any service member who declines to get the vaccine. Quote, the administration strongly opposes Section 716, which would detract from readiness and limit a commander's options for enforcing good order and discipline when a service member fails to obey a lawful order to receive a vaccination, the White House argued. To enable a uniformed force to fight with discipline, commanders must have the ability to give orders and take appropriate disciplinary measures. A lawful order to receive a vaccination. The question here is it lawful and is it a vaccination? And we could totally jump into that rabbit hole, but the creator of mRNA vaccine says no, it's not. There's a phenomenal video right here is at Rumble. Dr. Zelenko speaks to a rabbinical court in Jerusalem. And if we could, I'd play all of it for you right now. But this was a phenomenal video. If you can find this, it's about a half an hour long. Dr. Zelenko has treated President Trump. He's treated Bibi Netanyahu. He's treated the president of Venezuela. He's treated Rudy Giuliani, as well as over 6,000 other patients personally, has trained hundreds of doctors in the treatment of COVID-19, and to hear him speak on what he calls, is literally his words, a poison death shot, is phenomenal. So if you can find this at Rumble, let's see if I'm actually going to, I did not post this in the thing, so I'm going to go ahead and put the thing right here with the thing. There you go, spamming my own chat for reasons. So back to the Blaze article. If you get a chance to read that or watch that Dr. Zelenko video at Rumble, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. Thank you to everybody who's thrown out the super chats. I'm actually not paying attention to those right now. Not because I don't love you, not because I don't appreciate it, but because the way that I have to do this currently to be able to screen share with you, I can't see them. I just looked down at my phone and I saw one, so I appreciate it. Who did that? Walt Bedford did that. I appreciate that, Walt. Thank you. The provision introduced by Representative Mark Green, who's a Republican from Tennessee, during the bill's markup phase ensured that service members removed over the refusal to get their vaccine would receive nothing but an honorable discharge, noting that many Americans have reservations about taking a vaccine that has only been available for less than a year. So essentially, Green from Tennessee is saying, hey, if you're going to kick these people out of the military because they won't take the jab, let's make sure they get an honorable discharge. The reason for that is, other than honorable and dishonorable discharge, have long-term ramifications for those service members down the road. Any discharge, well, here it is. Any discharge other than honorable denotes a dereliction of duty or a failure to serve the United States and its people to the best of the ability of an individual, the provision states. The executive branch last month issued a sweeping directive requiring all U.S. service members to be vaccinated. At the time that the directive was issued, more than 800,000 service members had yet to receive the vaccine, according to Pentagon data. The move, controversial move, drew immediate backlash from conservative lawmakers and members of the military, but the Pentagon, on the other hand, has characterized the mandate as a lawful order that must be followed. So, this Representative Green from Tennessee, at the drafting of this bill, said, hey, if we're going to kick people out of the military for following their convictions, let's at least make sure they get an honorable discharge. And that was squashed. If you want to read the remainder of the article for more context, you can do that. The link is in the description. Moving along, here we have, under the column of war, we've got two boxes checked, both the government and China/Ruskies. This, let's give credit where credit was due. This is something that I became aware of watching the Forward Observer Situational Awareness Report. So shout out to Dustin, shout out to Mike. I'm a big fan of Forward Observer, so if you're not following Forward Observer here on YouTube, you should be. They also have a subscription service, which I'm happy to tell you I pay $10 a month for their daily email, and I greatly enjoy it. Mike and Dustin, increase the size of the font on your email so that human beings can read it. It's like this big. I can't read it, ever. I love you guys. You're doing a great job. The intelligence analysis is awesome. Let's make the email where we can actually read it. But it's worth spending $10 for the email. You do what I do. Turn your phone sideways and zoom in a little bit, and then you can read it. Because some of us are on devices, not on laptops or desktops. U.S. MDA test launches upgraded Homeland missile defense. So the Missile Defense Agency revealed that it had test launched a kill vehicle mock-up with curtailed boosting stages for earlier release. This whole article, what this goes into is essentially we are increasing our surface-to-air missile defense capabilities. They're interceptor missiles for intercontinental ballistic missiles. I can say that word. Let's try again. Intercontinental ballistic missiles. There we go. ICBMs. Where does that threat come from? Russia and China. And so this is an indicator that the DoD has at least some concern over a hot war of conventional means. Guns, tanks, bombs, planes, right? Missiles, that kind of stuff. And so the fact that they are increasing this technology, they're pouring money into this technology, is an indicator that they have some concern over that. According to Boeing Raytheon, the GMD system is America's only operationally deployed long-range ballistic missile defense for homeland protection, including Alaska and Hawaii. It detects and tracks a ballistic missile during the boost phase, intercepting and destroying it mid-flight. The kill vehicle atop the missile uses sensors and lenses and rocket thrusters to spot a missile warhead before colliding with it. Future upgrades to the system include sensing and tracking capabilities to assess the threat after initial engagement, while retaining the time to engage again if necessary. This is our first step toward a robust shoot, assess, shoot capability, Hill added. So, it's an indicator. It's not an indicator that there's going to be war with Russia or China tomorrow, but it is an indicator that that is still on the table, that people in positions of power are still concerned about this. And then, disinformation. How about this? Biden administration bans border agents from using horses after false reporting from Del Rio, Texas, where it has been reported for days that Border Patrol agents were whipping immigrants. Negative. After days of controversy surrounding a false report that Border Patrol agents on horseback in Texas used whips to drive Haitian migrants away from the border, the Biden administration on Thursday banned the use of horses in Del Rio, Texas. If I was Texas, I'd just be like, hey, great idea. How about you go kick rocks? During the daily White House press briefing, Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, we'll circle back to that. Images of Border Patrol agents confronting illegal immigrants attempting to cross the Rio Grande were horrible and horrific. She told reporters that Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas spoke with civil rights leaders Thursday morning, because that's what we need, more civil rights for people that aren't even citizens of this country, and less actual protection of the borders of this country. Let's make sure we have those scales balanced appropriately. Spoke with civil rights leaders Thursday morning and informed them that, quote, that we will no longer be using horses in Del Rio. This is like the quintessential governmental knee-jerk reaction to something. Oh, the whips with the guys on the horses was a problem, take their horses away. Turns out, that wasn't the problem at all. The problem was, you're stupid. This policy change was in response to a lie. On Monday, the El Paso Times first reported that a mounted U.S. Border Patrol agent swung a whip at Haitian migrants who were attempting to cross the Rio Grande River and illegally enter the United States near Del Rio, Texas, where 1,000 more immigrants were encamped under a bridge. The article said the agent swung his whip menacingly, charging his horse toward the men in the river who were trying to return to an encampment under the international bridge in Del Rio. I wonder who paid for that bridge. Was it internationally paid for? Does it have international jurisdiction? I bet you there's a line in the middle of that damn bridge where one jurisdiction stops and another one starts. The international bridge in Del Rio after buying food and water in Quintana, Mexico. Yeah, there's the pics. You can see Texas is a special kind of something, though. It's like, let's give these guys plate carriers and horses. It's kind of cool. I'll give them that. And the article goes on from here. The thing you need to understand from this article is it's all a bunch of bullcrap. It's the quintessential disinformation campaign. And Rome burning. We talked about the jab and the military and dishonorable discharge. Yet another example of, unfortunately, the decline of the American empire. And so with that, I'll leave y'all with this, refugemedical.com. If you need a kit that's handmade, made in America, and guaranteed forever, you can get it at refugemedical.com. Our kits exceed military specification for individual first aid kits. We are up to 26 lives saved. 26. Shout out to Kyle Minyard. You're a badass. You've treated 3 injuries, 2 of which were life-threatening at this point in the last couple of weeks. Dude, you rock. Good job. Refugemedical.com. First aid kits, wound care buckets, individual components, all the things. Everything from a little tiny kit that you can keep on your plate carrier, the SOB kit, which is badass, all the way to the Stomp Bag, SEAL Team Operational Medical Pack, which is a hospital on your back. You can find all of that at refugemedical.com. Refugetraining.com. A lot of people have been asking about training. We've got classes in Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, Charlotte, Greensboro, North Carolina, Orlando, Florida, And then we've got level 3 classes, which is Force on Force. It's a phenomenal time. 8-hour tactical emergency casualty care class for y'all civilians. And this is for civilians as well as law enforcement, military, EMS, and fire. All of these courses, the curriculums are nationally post-accredited. You get training hours for this. They're excellent. Instructors have over 70 years combined experience from the battlefield to the streets as law enforcement officers, SWAT medics, Army and Marines. I love it. Refugetraining.com is where you'll find this. And you've got level 1 classes, which is 4-hour Stop the Bleed in Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Orlando, Florida. And then level 3 classes, which is the 8-hour Force on Force TECC class in Atlanta, Georgia, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And you can use promo code BOGO15, BOGO, BOGO15 for 15% off your second seat at Refuge Training. And lastly, I want to shout out Chaffiot Collection. Our buddy Justin at Chaffiot makes really good cigars. And if you don't smoke cigars, I'm not saying you should start smoking cigars. I'm saying that if you do smoke cigars and you think that human trafficking is an abomination, then I would recommend going to chaffiotcollection.com. There's a link in the description. They make excellent cigars. Tonight I am smoking the Hear No Evil currently, and I just got a 5-pack of their Not Your Granddaddy's Connies or whatever they were. They are excellent. They're like a Gurkha, but more Gurkha-y. They're really, really excellent cigars. And so, if you don't smoke cigars, don't start. If you do smoke cigars and you'd like to support an excellent company with an excellent mission that makes an excellent product, go to chaffiotcollection.com. Tell them Bear sent you. It's time to see human trafficking go up in smoke. I agree completely. And I've talked to these people on the phone several times. They're really, really good people. I support their mission. I support their vision. And they have an excellent product. So give them a try if you haven't. Now, for those of y'all who are on Patreon, we're going to shut this YouTube live stream down. Thank y'all to everybody in the Bear Nation for supporting us. The Threat Matrix, I hope you found it valuable. In about 5 minutes, I'm going to post a link on Patreon to the after party where we'll just be hanging out and fellowshipping and doing prepper Q&A over there. And so with that, bless y'all.